A 10th District Legionnaire already online with 1 counter. And this is kind of the sweet spot for the Boros Feather deck. He's untapping with the Feather. He has another creature he can target, so all of his stuff like Gird for Battle is good.
Yeah, he is at 1 life, though, so he has to deal with not only 1 or 2 of the creatures on the battlefield, but another one's coming from Whetstone at the end step thanks to that Adonta the First Fort.
So here is Defiant Strike. He'll scry with the Legionnaire, draws a card off the strike. Though it looks like Whetstone's at 22. It's going to be difficult to deal lethal here.
I don't think he's dealing lethal this turn or anything like that. He's just trying to survive. Looks like he found a shock or at least something that he liked off of that Defiant Strike. So now he's just going to have to put up like 1 more blocker and then see where things go from there.
Right, Legion War Boss.
Okay.
Checks the box as being a blocker. Also gets to shove this Goblin.
Yeah, so can potentially start generating pressure while also generating a blocker. If Whetstone doesn't trade here, you know, the second Goblin doesn't have to attack next turn. It gets to just sit back on defense.
So Whetstone to 21. Tomajko picks up that Defiant Strike because of the Feather. Whetstone will make a Vampire token. And it'll be Whetstone's turn. Looks like he was empty-handed. He'll draw up to 1 card.
All right, well, I think Oliver has successfully survived this turn. And now it's going to come down to whether or not Whetstone actually just wants to sit back and wait to try to generate enough creatures. Because if he just sits back with the Rustwing Falcon, I believe that's a Rustwing Falcon.
Yep.
It has 2 toughness, so it can just eat the Goblin every turn. So Oliver's not able to develop an extra creature in that manner. But if Oliver wants to go for a shock on the Rustwing Falcon, the Legion War Boss is going to make a tapped attacking Goblin every turn, but the one that was made on the previous turn gets to play defense, and he can kind of keep pace with that Adonta the First Fort.
Whetstone's just going to attack with all 4 creatures against 3 blockers. See Tomajko lining up blocks.
Yeah, I think this is just, I really hope you don't have it because I'm not getting out of this anyway. And it looks like Oliver has the shock. Whetstone's going to protect the Rustwing Falcon, so it's not going to die.
Otherwise, perfectly profitable blocks for Tomajko. Whetstone's battlefield, save for the Falcon, now in the graveyard.
Yeah, but there's not a ton he can do, right? The Feather is just going to effectively take over the game thanks to its recursive nature with that Defiant Strike. So he's just drawing an extra 2 cards every turn cycle. And he's going to be able to find a removal, and Legion War Boss generates blockers every turn cycle too.
And you saw him just use the strike to scry with Legionnaire, kept a card that he liked and drew it. And we'll go back to Tomajko's turn. That Legionnaire also gets pretty big pretty quick.
Yeah. I don't think Whetstone is dead this turn, but I think there's a very good chance he's dead next turn.
Yeah, it shouldn't take too long here. Was that a 7-card hand for Tomajko?
Yeah, and almost all his cards in hand are instant or sorceries that cost 1 mana, so you can deploy most of them in 1 turn. And I'm pretty sure most of them come back as well.
Here's Defiant Strike again on the Legionnaire. He'll scry. Thinking about keeping another one. He will. He'll draw it.
It's a fry, so he just wants all removal protection.
Baffling End on your Falcon.
Yeah, that'll get rid of that attacker. But if he decides to shove in here with everything, he might be leaving himself a little bit vulnerable to heroic reinforcements, which is basically the only way Whetstone can get out of this. I'm curious to see what if Oliver attacks with everything or not.
So he made this Goblin token. He's going to hang back the old Goblin token and the Feather. So the War Boss attacks with the fresh token and the 6/6 Legionnaire, mentors onto the Goblin token. So this is an attack for 10.
Yeah, this is putting him down to 12. He can make a 1/1, and then if he can draw heroic reinforcements, and he'll have 3 attackers versus 2 blockers. But unbeknownst to him, Oliver does have that fry at the ready.
So Vampire token shows up. Tomajko picks up the Defiant Strike. This might be Whetstone's last draw step.
Well, he drew a 1-drop. He can also maybe chump block the 10th District Legionnaire, but if I'm not mistaken, Oliver actually has God's Willing in hand, so he might be able to give it protection from white and just do a large chunk of unblockable damage.
Whetstone deploys Sky Marcher Aspirant. Tomajko will Defiant Strike the Legionnaire again. This time he'll scry to the bottom and draws with the Defiant Strike. That one will come back because of the feather, but he's not done yet. Here's God's Willing. Gets to scry a couple times, grows the Legionnaire again.
Yeah, and he can do this all because Feather just puts it right back in his hand. So he just gets to spend all his mana every turn and put a bunch of counters onto the 10th District Legionnaire. And then he's going to give it protection from white.
Yeah, and there's another God's Willing, so we could get both of those back, make the Legionnaire and the War Boss protection from white. So he gets to pick up the Defiant Strike and both God's Willings. Writing is on the wall here.
Yeah, so at the very least, 9 damage coming across with the Legionnaire, 10 with the God's Willing. Defiant Strike is 11, 12. Just that alone is lethal.
Yeah, so there's God's Willing. Target the Legionnaire. It's a 10 power creature now. Tomajko scries 1 twice. Looks like 2 to the bottom. Protection from white, I have to figure.
Well, the first one might be protection from red, and the second one might be protection from white. For whatever that's worth.
Couple fries. Blockers offline.
Nom 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 nom.
Goblin token from the War Boss. Attack with everybody, and Whetstone extends the hand all over Tomajko. Little redemption against the white aggressive decks. He is now 7-1 with Boros Feather.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about